Diamond B Sports presents the American Sports Cavalcade. A panorama of speed, color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade.
Prior to becoming a state in 1907, the eastern half of Oklahoma was known as Indian Territory. And still today, thanks to this recreated Cherokee village, visitors to the area can taste what the Indians' lifestyle was like before encountering the white man in the 1700s. In the 1800s, outlaws roamed the land, and a century later, they will again, only this time they're riding winged steel steeds. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Evans. We're at Tulsa Speedway, where Fram Autolite brings you our coverage of the World of Outlaws sprint car competition. If we have any of our Indian friends with us today, I hope they brought about 3 buffalo robes, because the chill factor is down in the 20s. But that should be more than offset by the hot action on the racetrack. The World of Outlaws, some of the bravest drivers around, and some pretty incredible machines. And also today, we'll bring you a bonus event. It's called the Fram Dash. More on that a bit later. Now, the track here at Tulsa Speedway is a bit different than the dirt tracks we've shown you before. For more on that, Brock Yates.
Well, Steve, you're right. Tulsa Speedway is kind of interesting. You know, most of the outlaw tracks are classic half miles, but this one a little bit shorter, 3/8 of a mile. And the layout's interesting. Nice long straightaways and relatively tight corners. Now, down there in turn 1 and turn 2, notice there's no fence, so there's just a runoff area down there, and you'll see some guys get off in the dirt on occasion. Down the back straightaway, a long one, and into tight turn 3 and 4. Notice we've got a low groove here during qualifying, but the guys tell me that as the cushion wears in, we're going to get a 2-groove racetrack, so we should have some really good competition here. Tulsa Speedway well laid out. Outlaws like it, a little bit chilly, but we're going to have a super day of racing. Count on it.
Yesterday, in preliminary competition, the track was much slicker than we can expect today. Witness Bobby Davis Jr., the red number 6 car. Came into turn number 3, maybe just a little bit too hot. The car oversteering, and he spun it out. But that was just the beginning of his problems, right, Brock?
It sure was. Here comes Kenny Jacobs in the red 56. He tries to go underneath, and right behind him is Jack Hodgenchild in the 18. He clips Davis in the left front, but here comes Rocky Hodges, and he T-bones the 6 car. From another angle, you can see Jacobs coming through as the 6 car spins. There is Hodgenchild in the white 18. He whacks Bobby Davis Jr. right there, but gets through. But Rocky Hodges not so lucky. Up and over. First goes Davis, then Hodges. Both cars flop on their big wings. Fortunately, no one hurt, but a lot of bent metal.
In a lot of forms of racing, an incident, a crash like Bobby Davis Jr. suffered yesterday would have really demoralized the team. They might not have been back on the track for a couple of weeks. Not in the World of Outlaws. They're used to that kind of thing. In just 2.5 hours, here's what happened to the number 6 car. They completely replaced the front Nerf bar, an entire new front end assembly, axle, radius rods, and shock absorbers. Now, the headers on the other side, just like this side, were crunched, so they were replaced. Also, the side Nerf bars, both sides had to be replaced. And at the rear, you see an entire new bumper has been installed. As I said again, all of that was accomplished in just about 2.5 hours, thanks to advanced planning on the team's part. They have all the necessary pieces in the trailer to get that job done.
Steve, we're going to see Bobby Davis Jr. out here in one of the heats, but right now, heat number 1 ready to go. Danny Smith and Jack Hewitt, the USAC veteran, on the pole. Jeff Swindell in the 10 car. Tim G from the Yukon Territory in row number 2.
We'll be seeing 4 heat races today. In each, 3 will transfer to the main event, and they will all be 10 laps in length. And of course, yellow flag laps in the World of Outlaws do not count.
All right, that is the only Ford-powered car in the field, that number 10 car, driven by a young Jeff Swindell, one of the bright young stars in the World of Outlaws. And the green flag is out as they come off turn 4.
And let's remember, the top 6 here were inverted, so some of the quicker cars are back as far as row number 3, and already they start to move up through the pack.
All right, Danny Smith, in the 57 car out front, down into turn number 3 and 4. Right behind him, Jack Hewitt, and in third spot, Jeff Swindell.
And that Ford of Jeff Swindell has shown a lot of muscle here in the last few weeks, Brock. It's got a lot of torque off these corners, and that's what you need here on this track that's shaped kind of like a long paper clip.
There's the 63 car, Jack Hewitt, Troy, Ohio, holding on to that second spot. Jeff Swindell in the third spot in that blue number 10. Hewitt, like so many of these guys, Steve, out of the Indiana, Ohio area. Then, of course, you've got the Swindells and Bobby Davis Jr. from the Memphis, Tennessee area, and then a whole bunch of guys from around Oklahoma and the Great Plains states.
Not to mention a colony in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. Good race here for fourth spot. That's Tim G in the 88. Right behind him, Tommy Estes in 11X, the 12 car with Steve Perry on board, and 97 Mike Peters working on each other.
And how about this battle for the second spot on the outside, the blue car? That is Jeff Swindell. He just flew right by Jack Hewitt, and now sets his sights on number 57, Danny Smith, the leader. Remember, the top 3 go to the feature event. If you don't place in the top 3, you have to run the consolation, and no one really wants to do that.
Absolutely not. Just more wear and tear and hard work. As Jeff Swindell sets his sights on the leader, Danny Smith, down the front straightaway. Notice it's a low groove through turns 1 and 2, Steve, so not much opportunity to pass there.
But even in this first heat, Brock, you can already see the rubber starting to build on the track, and before this is over, we may have a 3-group racetrack, and there challenging the leader was Jeff Swindell, and here trying to take third spot, the 11X car, Tommy Estes on the outside, and he does. He gets Jack Hewitt. That will move Estes into the third spot. Hewitt going very high there, maybe too high.
Yeah, there's the race for the lead. Notice that turns 3 and 4 have become a 2-group racetrack as Swindell tries Smith again high, down the front chute. Swindell stays high, backs it into turn number 1, goes high. Can he get all the way around? Now he's got to cut down inside Danny. He does. He takes the lead down the back chute.
Some picture-perfect sprint car driving here, Brock, as they set them sideways and stay sideways all the way through these sweeping turns.
Danny Smith obviously isn't working as well as Jeff Swindell. His race car just doesn't work high. Jeff's will work on both high and low here. So he's taking a high groove while Danny Smith stays on the bottom of the racetrack and falls back.
Look at Tommy Estes Jr., the 11X car. He continues to be impressive on the outside, running up on the cushion, challenging for second, and he takes second over Danny Smith.
Last lap coming up, and the local folks have got something to cheer about. Ada, Oklahoma's Tommy Estes Jr. riding in the second spot, but he's not going to be able to run down Jeff Swindell.
Not a prayer of that happening. There is the blue car from Memphis, Tennessee, number 10, Jeff Swindell, taking the victory in heat number 1. For a long time, of course, Brock, he has raced kind of in the shadow of his older brother, 2-time champion Sammy Swindell. But Jeff is emerging from those shadows right now. He's a superstar on his own.
He sure is. We'll be back to talk with him right after this.
The new Good Times credit plan from your Kawasaki dealer.
Welcome back to Tulsa Speedway as Fram Autolite presents the Oklahoma Showdown. We're about ready to start heat number 2, but let's have another look at those standings. Jeff Swindell in heat number 1, Tommy Estes Jr., Danny Smith, Mike Peters, Jack Hewitt. Only the top 3 will transfer to the feature. Considering what happened to Jeff Swindell yesterday in preliminary action, like Bobby Davis Jr., he's lucky to be back. This is turn number 3 and 4 as Jeff Swindell and Mike Ward get together, coming off turn number 4. Swindell's Sprinter does a kind of trip on its right front wheel and rolls twice, ending up on its wing and roll cage. But, like Bobby Davis Jr., the damage was pretty superficial, quickly repaired, Jeff back in it, and Steve is with him now.
Well, Jeff Swindell has every reason to smile, Brock. What a performance. Flawless in that first heat.
Yeah, everything went just real smooth. Yesterday we had a few problems there in the feature and kind of got her upside down. But we was going to the front there and everything looked real good. We just kind of got sandwiched in between a couple of cars. We come back with basically our same deal today. We changed around a little bit earlier because the track was nice and heavy. We had to go out and qualify late, but we still qualified 5th, I think. Nobody beat us after we went out. You know, the 3 of the first 5 cars, I think, went out in the first 5 cars to qualify. But, shoot, this Ford runs really great, you know.
Well, Steve, we're ready to go with heat number 2 here. 10 laps. Again, 3 transfer to the main. Tony Armstrong there in row number 2. He's a local favorite right out of Sand Spring, just down the road here a piece.
And another one to watch is 45X, young Johnny Herrera from Albuquerque, former Rookie of the Year in the World of Outlaws.
Okay, on the pole, Robbie Stanley in the orange 44, taking him down toward turn number 3. He'll be on the throttle. The green is out. We're racing.
And it's 44R. Robbie Stanley leading them down into turn number 1. But look at number 20 on the outside there, Brock. That is Rodney Duncan, and he is trying to go high. He's able to go, oh, he just stays in the racing surface.
All right, Rodney Duncan taking the high road here at Tulsa Speedway, trying to work his way around 7X Terry McCarl and 39 Tony Armstrong, and he makes it work. So suddenly Rodney Duncan moves into the second spot. Out front, though, Robbie Stanley is holding on to that lead, but the man to watch right now, Steve, is that pilot at number 20. He is flying.
Well, as usual, in a race like this, the toughest competition can be for the third spot, the final transfer position. And right now, that third position is held by 39 Tony Armstrong. He was being pressured by 7X Terry McCall. He has pulled up lane down in turn number 1. That'll move Dave Blaney up into that fourth position. That is car number 48.
So the plot thickens here as 39 Terry Armstrong continues to hold on to the third spot. That's the key one right now, but he will be challenged by Dave Blaney in that white number 48.
Blaney now owns that fourth position, followed by number 2, Ted Lee in fifth, and 45X Johnny Herrera in the sixth position. But here's Herrera challenging on the inside. And on the outside, way outside, is number 2, Ted Lee. It is gonna be Lee fending him off for the moment anyway.
Couple of Southwestern drivers, Lee out of El Paso, Texas, Johnny Herrera up the road in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Right now, the Texans got the advantage.
And look at this, 48 Dave Blaney has passed 39 Tony Armstrong for that third position. Blaney is now in that final transfer spot.
Right, out of Hartford, Ohio, the number 48 car moves into that third spot. All right, there goes Blaney down the back chute, opening out a little bit and gathering a pretty firm grip on that third spot. Here comes Lee, though, right in that high groove, up there on the cushion, making up some time.
Okay, the orange 2 car, that is Ted Lee, and he wants the fourth position from 39, Tony Armstrong, and tried every trick in the book to get it and almost went off the edge of the racetrack.
Yeah, he got a little high there coming off, too, but Lee still rides up there in the marbles, trying to make up time, but that was a costly error coming off a 2, and Armstrong has moved out. Here comes Lee, though, again, and got underneath Armstrong. Armstrong almost got it sideways as they came off, too, so Ted Lee continues to ride that high line and make up some time on the leaders.
Well, there's not much racing distance left for Ted Lee in the orange number 2 car to pick up that third position. If he doesn't get it, it appears that he won't, especially if he keeps going quite that high coming out of turn number 2.
All right, Robbie Stanley takes an unchallenged victory here, but here comes Armstrong challenging down low. Does he do it? No. Cannot quite nip Lee for that fourth spot.
Well, chalk one up for Brownsburg, Indiana's Robbie Stanley in the 44R car. Right now, he's got to be thinking, boy, I wish they were all this easy. Trust me, Robbie, they won't be. We'll be back. One of America's most beloved humorists was not born in any state, but in Indian Territory. November 4th, 1879, in this residence was born Will Rogers. From this community of Claremore, Rogers went on to be a trick roper in vaudeville, a syndicated columnist, a movie star, but best known for his humorous observations of mankind. Would be interesting to know what Mr. Rogers might have thought. In the world of Outlaws, he was a cowboy through and through, and he loved high-powered machinery. The top 3 from heat number 2 will go to the main event, led by the man in the 44R car, who's with Brock.
Well, Robbie Stanley wins it the way everybody liked to win it, just kind of jumped off the pole and said goodbye. Race car seemed hooked up well, and you didn't look like you're having any major problems.
I'm surprised that we really went as fast as what they said we did. I didn't know how far I was ahead of them, but I do know that the racetrack is really slick. You got to really be calm and take a lot of patience.
Yeah, I noticed you coming into 3, down the back chute, you were really being careful.
Yeah, I didn't know where they were running. I thought there might be some on the high line because it looked like there might be a little bit of moisture to run against, and I didn't see anybody come up beside me, so I never changed my line, just waited to see what happened. So.
Well, you were driving away from him, so good job, Robbie.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Now let's go to Steve with Tony Armstrong, who was in that great race for 4th.
Well, Johnny, I know you wanted to advance directly to the feature. Now you go to the Conti, but what a race for that 4th position. We were watching it.
Well, we just missed the setup just a little bit. We couldn't run the 1 and 2 corners like we really needed to, and that's where I started losing spots. We could get around this end pretty good, but in 1 and 2, I just couldn't stay on the bottom like I needed to.
What's the difference in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4?
Well, I think, I'm not really exactly sure. There's a little bit of moisture along the bottom down here. The other end, there's really nothing. It's still got the marbles all over it, but it's going to be just like yesterday. The late heat races are going to start taking rubber, and in the Constellation, we should have a little rubber down and things will be fast again.
So really, it's a hunt for moisture if you can find it out there.
Right, and if you can get in hard enough and still stay to where the moisture is, that's where you got to do.
Is it cold at all driving the car today?
No, you forget all about that. When you're driving around on the pace laps, you can feel it on the back of your legs, but that's about the only time you notice it.
Okay, thanks a lot. Well, Brock, I never thought I'd want to drive one of these things, but if it's warmer in there, I'm game.
Is there room for 2? It is really chilly, I'll tell you what. As we get ready for the 3rd heat, now remember now, it's 10 laps, 3 to the main event. And we've got Jimmy Sills in the 2nd row, and he's one of the hot shots on the World of Outlaws out of California, Steve. And Bobby Allen in the 1A, one of the real veterans in the World of Outlaws. And starting scratch in the back here in the 7S car is Joe Martin from right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now that automobile is substantially different than most of the cars in this field. A more classic automobile, you might say. Earlier, I had a chance to look at it.
You know, a lot of the old traditionalists sprint car racing say that the race cars of the day with their aerodynamics aren't quite as pretty as the old ones. Now, here's a little bit different look here. This car belongs to Speed Chamberlain right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was built back in 1980 by Barnett, one of the better sprint car builders in the country. And you'll notice that the fuel injection box here is curved, and the hood itself has a nice rolling curve look to it. Really kind of a pretty automobile. But more interestingly, look at this windscreen here. Speed Chamberlain himself ran years and years and years back in the old open cockpit days of the IMCA and other Midwest sprint car organizations. And Speed says the modern race car has such a high hood that the drivers can't see the front wheels. He said, you'll notice how many guys tend to drive over each other in the corners. He said a lot of that has to do with the fact that you can't see where you're going. So this is a much more classic old-fashioned windscreen that you'll see on most race cars here. And the reason being is that Speed insists that his driver has an opportunity to see where he's going. That happens to be Smokin' Joe Martin, his first year in sprinters. But I'll tell you what, sure looks a lot prettier to me, and I'll bet it works pretty good, too, for Joe.
How they've changed in just 8 years. All right, this is heat number 3, 10 laps, top 3 to the main event. They're on the final pace lap. In fact, they are racing. Leading them down into turn number 1 from Woodbine, Maryland, is 17E Chris East. That is the yellow car. Just behind Chris comes Jimmy Sills from the Gold Country of California.
But look at this. The 2-car of Richard Summers out of Texas jumps by Sills in kind of an upset move there. The upstart of the day, but Sills says, I'm taking that right back from you, Summers.
All right, well, the big battle, as always in these heat races, is going to be back there for that 3rd position. And right now, that is 2H Richard Summers. Greg Woolley in the 23 car in the 4th spot. And 1A, Scruffy, Bobby Allen from Pennsylvania in the 5th position.
All right, there's Woolley out of Oklahoma City in the 23 car, taking that high road. Up high, up on top, on the cushion. And that seems to be working for Greg. Oh, he's pulling off. Obviously something wrong with that 23 car, so Richard Summers comes back after being challenged right behind him in the 1A. Hanover, Pennsylvania's Bobby Allen, former world go-kart champion. Got his sights on Summers in that 3rd spot. That's the transfer position. Allen's got to move up 1 more if he's going to miss the consolation and move into the feature. Richard Summers, though, right now holding on to that 3rd spot with a real authority, and Allen can't seem to run him down on the straights.
And here is the race for the lead. The yellow car, 17E Chris East from the East Coast, with Jimmy Sills from the West Coast behind him. Sills going high, trying to just put that driving right wheel up on the cushion. Perfectly done right there. Let's see if there's any benefit.
Well, it's interesting. This racetrack off turns 3 and 4 is a 2-groove track. And right now, though, Sills gets underneath East coming off turn number 2.
can't quite make it stick. Now Ish goes high as well. So both drivers up on top through turns 3 and 4.
And they both seem to like the same line, Brock. Their driving styles very similar here. This is a race now, I believe, of horsepower.
Well, right now, though, Sills seems to be able to hook up a little bit better on the bottom through turns 1 and 2, Steve. And I would imagine if he's going to get by Ish, it's going to be down this straightaway here and underneath. Now watch. Let's see if he ducks underneath Ish. He does, but I don't know. Can he get him coming off turn number 2? No. Ish holds on. But down the back straightaway, underneath. Good move by Jimmy Sills. Ish goes high, Sills low. He may make it work this time.
No, sir. The 17 car. Ish still in the lead, but now Sills does it. Coming out of turn number 2. Nice move.
Beautiful race there by both drivers. The race for third. Bobby Allen moves up on Richard Summers and charges past as they dive into turn number 3. So Bobby Allen gets the transfer spot on a charge into the corner and just flat out braved Richard Summers as they got into that turn.
Well, Allen had to make that move. He was running out of time because the leader, Jimmy Sills, is on the very last lap. Coming out of turn number 4, he will win this heat number 3. In the second position will be Ish, and third position will be Bobby Allen. And how about our man in the old traditional sprint car in the back 7S? Well, that's Joe Martin, and Joe finished up in the 9th position. But there's the gentleman from Placerville, California, who won it. 4A, Jimmy Sills.
At the Tulsa Speedway for the Oklahoma Showdown, where we'll have one more look at heat number 3. Jimmy Sills, the Californian, wins it. Chris Ish, second from back in the state of Maryland. Steve is with the winner.
Jimmy Sills coming out of the cockpit after a nice victory here in the 3rd heat. And Jimmy, as Chris Ish just found out, you can't give up that low line in 1 and 2 and hope to win.
Well, yeah, you know, I got underneath him there, and he got in a little bit too hard there and just slipped up past the bottom just enough to let me get a little smoke on him there.
What are you going to tell the crew?
Well, we aren't going to change too much because our track hadn't seemed to be changing, and our car's pretty close, and I think we're in pretty good shape.
Sure looked like it.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Brock with second place.
Well, Steve, I'm with Chris Ish, who just got a little high there, and Sills got underneath you. I suppose you were trying to protect yourself down there, but maybe, would you just get a little bit, just get outside the groove a little bit down there in 1 and 2?
Well, yeah, down there in 1 and 2, you really have to be on the bottom, and I seen him come up beside me there about 2 or 3 laps before he passed me, and so I moved up on this corner up here, and then down there I just run around a little too hard and missed it.
Yeah, you looked like everybody had to stay on the bottom in 1 and 2. Real tight down there. You can get, it's a high groove in 3 and 4, though.
Yeah, they got the track pretty wet up here in this corner, and, you know, it's got a nice cushion. But down there's just nothing to get a hold of.
Well, that's what's happened to a bunch of guys. They seem to, if they're going to get past it, if you just slide out a little bit, you're a goner.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, we had a good race anyway. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
For sure. And now let's go to Steve with the 3rd place finisher.
Okay, thank you, Brock. We've chased Bobby Allen down here between trailers and howling generators. You proved you can pass on this racetrack.
I'm glad I did, because I didn't think I was going to make the shook. I knew I didn't make any heat. I was going to start about 15th in the B because we had such a bad time trial. So I said, oh, God, please help me a little bit.
Well, apparently he did. You made some nice moves out there.
Yeah, we're happy right now a little bit. We think we got it getting closer.
Okay, you certainly have. See you a little later on. Good luck.
Thank y'all.
Okay, Bobby Allen relieved after that 3rd place finish, saves him from running in the B main. As we get ready, Steve Evans, to go with the 4th heat, and we've got some hot shoes in this one.
Oh, boy, this is just loaded with heroes. Back in row number 2, there is the rebuilt overnight red number 6 car of Bobby Davis Jr., the yellow 40 of Doug Wolfgang alongside him. Sammy Swindell back in the 3rd row in the beautiful black number 1. Now, Wolfgang's crew was busy too, Brock. They broke a crankshaft leading the feature yesterday, so a new engine has been installed in the yellow number 40.
And let's not forget Rocky Hodges in the orange 23. He was in that tango with Bobby Davis Jr. They repaired his race car as well. So Rocky, always a contender out of Des Moines, Iowa. He is going to be a factor here. On the pole from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, is Andy Hillenberg in that pretty black number 2, one of the up-and-coming young drivers on this Outlaw circuit.
All right, we've got to start. Sammy Swindell swings wide coming out of that 3rd row, but it's Andy Hillenberg in the black number 2 car that leads him out of turn number 2 behind him from Indiana. Indiana, the white number 3 car of Joe Garrity.
Okay, Hillenberg leads it down the back chute, but look at this. Hodges splits the seam between Swindell and Wolfgang to take over the 4th spot.
Wolfgang trying to get down low, and he just loses it into the infield. No apparent damage to the car. He'll try to get back into this, but boy, his chances may be rough, Rock. He may be headed for the consolation if he's going to make the feature at all. And here is the race for 2nd place. The number 6 car, Bobby Davis Jr. on the inside. The white 3 machine of Joe Garrity. But we have got a yellow flag. The caution is out because stalled right under the starter stand on the front straightaway. The number 12 car of Steve Perry from Dallas in a very precarious position. A wise choice of the starter to get the yellow out. That brings everybody down. Let's remember, there's 10 laps of racing in these heats, but the yellows do not count. Doug Wolfgang, is this a break for him, Brock?
It sure is. See, he was parked in the infield off turn number 4. This will give him a chance to get restarted. And let's take another look at that rare bobble of Doug Wolfgang in turn number 4. There you see that yellow number 40 just getting loose and now diving down through traffic. That is Bruce Moore out of Moline, Illinois in the 2X that almost collects Doug, but he slides free of everybody and just kind of drives to a halt in the infield. And as you said, Steve, if Perry hadn't brought out the yellow, I'm sure he'd have stayed stalled throughout the heat.
Here's how they'll restart. On the point will be Andy Hillenberg in the black number 2, the white 3G car of Joe Garrity in 2nd, Rocky Hodges in the final transfer spot in the 23S car, and they should be racing coming out of turn number 4. Indeed, they will be. Some go high, some go low, some stay in the middle. This has become a double groove racetrack.
Now remember now, the interesting part is Wolfgang, Swindell, and Bobby Davis Jr., none of them are in the transfer spots at this point.
There is Bobby Davis Jr. in the 6 car. Wolfgang trying to make up for the time he lost with that spin into the infield. And Wolfgang not coming in quite so hot this time.
No, he takes the bottom line way down on the bottom on the inside of the racetrack. There's Sammy Swindell going around Garrity, and Bobby Davis Jr. tries to follow him. There is Swindell in that black number 1 through turn number 3, and Davis way up high off of 4. Good race for 2nd here.
And the whoop is howling. Doug Wolfgang of the 40 car is back in the 6th position. Sammy Swindell has got 2nd, Joe Garrity, and Garrity now is falling back, Brock.
Right, there goes Bobby Davis Jr., there comes Rocky Hodges, and then orange 23, and that is Swindell chasing down Andy Hillenberg. Those 2 black cars leading this heat here.
And in the 3rd position, that all-important 3rd place, is that red car staying low in turn number 2, Bobby Davis Jr. Rocky Hodges now is the next to challenge for the 3rd position, and Wolfgang is moving up just behind Hodges. That'll put Wolfgang in the 5th spot.
Right, he's going to try Hodges low, apparently. Wolfgang back in it after that bobble that almost put him on the sidelines. Rocky stays up on top through 1 and 2. The racetrack is starting to get 2 grooves all the way around it now, Steve.
Indeed, there's Doug Wolfgang riding the high side on the push, as they say. Hodges down low. Wolfgang kind of tries to slingshot out of turn number 4. Does pick up some ground. Now he goes low, right where you need to be in 1 and 2, and maybe still a bit high as Rocky Hodges, but Hodges so far is holding off the Wolf.
All right, Wolf down low on the bottom through turn 4. Hodges high. Wolf has got a shot at him down into turn number 1. Will he get underneath him? Here is the race for 2nd spot. Bobby Davis Jr. takes it from Swindell.
A pair of Memphis drivers battling it out. Now Sammy Swindell going to try to pull up a payback here if he can. Bobby Davis getting high. Swindell staying right in the middle of the racetrack. Everybody seems to have a different line now.
You're right. In the meantime, this brawl for 4th continues. Wolfgang on the bottom. Rocky Hodges up on top. Down the back chute. Hodges holds off Wolfgang pretty effectively. Now Hodges goes low through turn 4. The Wolf down right behind him. Will he try him underneath? Oh, Rocky bobbles a little bit. Almost, but Wolfgang could not take advantage of it. Boy, what a race between these 2 professionals.
Well, Doug Wolfgang now is eating away at that interval between 4th and 5th spot. Wolfgang down low. Hodges got way too high. That time, Wolfgang going on to the last lap is in the 4th position, but he needs to be 3rd.
Boy, what a duel between these 2 guys. As the final lap unfolds, there's the Wolf, and there is Andy Hillenberg taking it flag to flag. No problem for him, but the rest of the field, they just banged on each other the whole way.
So Oklahoma native Andy Hillenberg in the beautiful black number 2 car wins the final heat. Coming up next, the very unique Fram Dash. Stay with us from the Oklahoma Showdown. This certainly was Will Rogers' most famous quote, "I never met a man I didn't like." It's inscribed on his memorial in Claremore, Oklahoma. Rogers was killed August 15, 1935, near Point Barrow, Alaska, along with famous aviator Wiley Post. Being a native Oklahoman, I'm sure Andy Hillenberg, who won heat number 4, is very familiar with the Rogers lore. Brock Yates is in the pit area with Andy now.
You've run here a lot, Andy. You're from just down the road in Broken Arrow. Is this racetrack inclined to behave well on a cold day like this?
Well, I've run here, I've probably been around it as many times as anybody, and at night it's a good racetrack. They water the top and iron it in, after about halfway through, and it comes in real good. I saw they tried it today. Looked like the track was a little bit too hard, so it's going to end up looking like be a pole running racetrack. Probably not much passing.
Well, let's hope you're up on the pole then.
Yeah, I'd like to be, but I don't know how far out there I'll be.
Well, good luck. Good job anyway. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Steve?
Well, coming up next, Brock, is the race that will determine who's on the pole. This is the Fram Dash. 7 laps of racing, 6 cars. The top 2 heat qualifiers from today and the top 4 A feature finishers from yesterday.
And we've got some real hard riders in here. Jack Hoddenchild and Mark Kinzer on the front row. Bobby Davis Jr., Jeff Swindell in row 2. And in the back row, Steve Kinzer and Kenny Jacobs in the red 56. Kinzer, of course, the winningest sprint car driver in modern history, coming down in that familiar blue and white number 11. And we've got to start here. Hoddenchild down low, jumps off the pole to take the lead.
Jeff Swindell slings the blue number 10 car sideways and almost tangles with Mark Kinzer. He's trying to get into that second spot, and he's going to do that. Kinzer falls back into third.
So we've got Jack Hoddenchild, Jeff Swindell, and Mark Kinzer coming right back at him as they come off turn number 4, but he can't make it work, and Jeff hangs on to that number 2 spot.
As they finish in the Fram Dash, so will they start the A feature today. There is Jeff Swindell in the second position, the blue. Oh, and Steve Kinzer, the 8-time world champion, is stopped on the racetrack. That may bring out the yellow.
All right, they are. They've thrown the yellow, so we're going to slow it down while the champion, the man who has won more sprint car races than anybody, is sitting in the middle of turn number 2. Well, we don't know what the matter with Steve Kinzer's number 11 is, Steve, but you got to speculate something seriously wrong. He sure didn't hit the kill switch.
No, you can bet on that. He didn't spin, he didn't hit a wall, he didn't hit anybody. Let's see if they're going to restart that car or
push him back into the pits. Yeah, we'll see right now whether or not. I'm sure Steve will try to restart, but we'll instantly find out whether they aim him at the pit lane or whether they try to push him on around the racetrack.
Well, this would mean that in the A feature, if indeed he's going off the racetrack, he could not start any better than 6.
That's right, and he is going off the racetrack. So as we suspected, something is broken in that car number 11, and that is a disaster for Steve Kinzer, as Jack Hoddenchild, Swindell, Kinzer, his cousin, Mark Kinzer, sits in the 3rd spot. We're going to get a green again as Jeff Swindell goes low, Hoddenchild high off turn 4.
So it's the Ford-powered car, the blue machine number 10 with Jeff Swindell in the second position. Look at Hoddenchild just viciously sliding that car through 1 and 2. Jeff Swindell comes right up on his push bar.
These are 2 of the most aggressive young drivers in all of sprint car racing. Jeff down low, Hoddenchild high. As we watch that race for 3rd place, that is Mark Kinzer in the 6R. Right behind him, Kenny Jacobs in the red 56. Sawing on that wheel as he comes off turn 2.
In the race for the lead, the 18 car of Jack Hoddenchild going high is Jeff Swindell, the blue number 10. And Brock, we see no wing movement on these cars. They are adjustable from the cockpit. There's no time on this bull ring. You're too busy driving.
Well, we've got a pretty healthy crosswind here, too, so I'm sure they've set the wings to stay all the way around this short racetrack as Hoddenchild pitches his number 18 sprinter into turn number 3, off turn 4. Jeff Swindell staying up high, but it doesn't seem to be working. Notice that Hoddenchild's riding right in the middle of the racetrack. We've got a good groove, a blue groove laid down, a lot of rubber on this track, and now Jack is driving away from Jeff.
Now Jeff goes out onto the cushion in desperation, I think, more than anything else, Brock, trying to find some way to hook that car up. He has been spinning the tires viciously. Right here, you can see the tires just spinning on that Blue Group racetrack.
And Mark Kinzer now moving in a little bit on Jeff Swindell in that third spot. So Mark has broken clear of Kenny Jacobs back there and is now trying to challenge Jeff Swindell for number 2.
Jack Haudenschild, the leader in the 18 car, is on the last lap. Just behind him is Jeff Swindell, the Ford-powered blue car, the number 10 machine, and that is
Mark Kinzer, and he better... Oh, look at that. Mark Kinzer, beautiful move on Jeff Swindell into turn number 3. Jack Haudenschild wins it, but Mark Kinzer drives by Jeff Swindell to take the runner-up spot on the final corner. Okay, Jack Haudenschild wins it, but the big story is Steve Kinzer, who retired. Steve is at his pit.
Brock, what you're looking at is the quick change in the differential of the number 11 car. Steve Kinzer rolled it in here, shrugged his shoulders. He said, it made no noise, guys. I have no idea what the driveline problem is. They're trying to find out, and that's the first place they're looking. And certainly no better crew to solve this mystery than the one led by Carl Kinzer out of Bloomington, Indiana, as they continue to check over this car, continuing to look at the drivetrain and that quick change rear end section. As far as the Fram Dash is concerned, well, here's the official results. Winning it, of course, in the 18 car, Jack Haudenschild second, Mark Kinzer, followed by Jeff Swindell, Kenny Jacobs, Bobby Davis Jr. That's how they'll start in the feature to come later on. Right now, let's go to Brock with the winner.
Well, Jack, you made it look pretty easy. You went high first couple of laps, then went down in the bottom, and the car looked really hooked up all the way.
Yeah, the car, the tires started getting warmed up, and the car started getting hooked up a little better, and we started going a little faster. The track's just getting a little blacker, and yeah, by feature time, they got a couple more races to run on it, and I think it's going to get pretty quick by feature time.
You going to make a lot of changes in the setup, or stay pretty much with it you got?
Well, we're pretty close. We'll just probably a couple of small things, and I think we'll be pretty close.
You're looking real close right now. Congratulations. Good job.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
And now let's go to Steve with Mark Kinzer.
Well, Brock, this is a man, Mark Kinzer, who seemed to know where he wanted to start in the feature coming up. By finishing second in the Fram Dash, that's going to put you in the front row, right?
Exactly. What they do with the dashes is the way you finish your dash, the way you start in the feature. And with a track like it is today, Steve, you know as well as I do, you need to be right up there toward the front.
Absolutely, because passing is difficult. Not impossible, just a bit difficult.
Right, exactly. You got to wait for a guy to slide up a little bit, or maybe just, you know, take the anchor out of it and put her up around the top side. And it's just really hard to pass, and you got to really take a chance to try to pass today.
We'll talk to you again before the feature. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mark Kinzer, excellent job in finishing second. But right now on the track, Steve, we've got the World of Outlaws B feature coming up. That, of course, is the Outlaws Copenhagen Skull National Point Series event, runner-up to the big main event. But here's the excitement in the pit area.
Well, Brock, they have still not isolated the problem with Steve Kinzer's number 11 car. They are checking this machine from stem to stern, and they don't have a whole lot of time left. Stay with us from the Oklahoma Showdown. You talk about cold. The only person that may be comfortable today in Tulsa, Oklahoma is sprint car driver Tim G from the Yukon Territory. The chill factor now in the single digits. But the action on the track and the B feature to come may make up for that. This is the last chance for all of these drivers to make the A main where the big money is. 12 laps of racing, the top 6 to the main. Brock Yates.
Well, Steve, the interesting pairing in the third row, of course, involves Jack Hewitt and Doug Wolfgang, who had that problem earlier. In row 6, Rocky Hodges. Now, if Wolfgang and Hewitt hold their places, they will qualify for the feature, but back in the field. As far as Rocky's concerned, though, he's got to work his way up toward the front to even make the A feature. So as the pace laps continue here, let's go to Steve Evans to see if we can find out what the problem is with car 11.
Well, Brock, things are a bit more serious in the Steve Kinzer camp than we originally thought. Rather than it being something seized up in the drivetrain that could be quickly fixed, apparently the engine itself has frozen up, and they are going to attempt an engine change before the feature race. They only have a matter of minutes to get this done, but as you can see, there's plenty of capable hands.
Well, one of the things about a modern sprint car is it is very simple in construction, and you can field strip it almost instantaneously, especially with a very capable crew like Carl Kinzer. In the meantime, we are formed up for the B main, Steve Evans, and we're going to watch that third row with Hewitt and Wolfgang.
Well, they don't have much time, only 12 laps of racing, especially in Rocky Hodges back there, as you pointed out. He's the one really under the gun here. All right, we've got a green flag, and we are racing in the B feature. A pair of Oklahomans up front. Tony Armstrong, Greg Woolley, car 39 and 23. Oh, and it is Armstrong in the 39 car. He slides right in to 23, Greg Woolley, and a whole bunch of drivers do a good job of missing this shot.
They sure did. So there is Armstrong stranded in the middle of turns 1 and 2. That, of course, will bring out the caution. No start, really. They just got into the race, and then out comes the yellow. So Sand Springs, Oklahoma's Tony Armstrong will probably get a restart. Of course, he'll advance to the back of the field, which makes it a tough break for him. He started on the outside pole. There is Rocky Hodges, who slid off, fortunately, without any real damage. He had to go way outside to avoid the problem. It looks like he's going to try to get a restart. And once again, though, a tough break for him. He's going to go to the back. Let's take another look, Steve.
Oh, as you know, Brock, this happened right at the beginning of the race in the very first turn. And there was 39 Armstrong just driving into the left rear wheel of Greg Woolley. Armstrong was very lucky that that car did not somehow get upside down. Anytime you have rubber-to-rubber contact with these cars, there is always that potential of a full flip or a roll.
Okay, and as you said earlier, everybody does an excellent job of missing him. Joe Garrity out of Rochester, Indiana, just nicks him, but no real damage there. And I would imagine that we're going to see Armstrong get underway here.
In avoiding the incident, Rocky Hodges took his car off the high side and down to this kind of escape area. You can see it's nice and smooth, no problem there at all. Better than trying to stay on the racetrack and accidentally run into somebody. So the official little vehicle there they call Workin' Woody, a 4-wheel drive, goes down and pushes him back up onto the racetrack, where ultimately, hopefully, the 23 car will be restarted.
Yeah, there they go. And now we're with the Armstrong car. They have actually gotten that thing into the pit area. They're going to have to change that right front wheel. Apparently the Garrity whack there bent things, and they're going to have to make that replacement. And it may be that the World of Outlaw officials are holding the field out there until Armstrong, right here going into his trailer, can get back into the race car. We're going to soon find that out as the field continues to circulate here under caution. Remember now, we have not even had one lap of this B feature. Currently sitting in the 7th spot is Memphis, Tennessee's Mike Ward. Now, he's here with a beautiful brand new car that earlier Steve had a look at.
Sprint cars may look basically the same year after year from the grandstands, but if you look at them close, there's a constant evolution going on. Let's take a look at some of the new tricks on the 61 car of Mike Ward. The shock absorber here is not bolted to the mount. It is quick pen, so the crew can change shocks without even going to the toolbox. That could save some precious seconds. Now look down under the seat. There's nothing there. That's where the engine oil tank used to reside, but it was getting so much heat from the rear brake rotors that they moved it forward, which also gives the car a little better balance. As far as appearance is concerned, the 61 car is actually a bit unique. Take a look at the cowling here as it comes to a very distinctive point. What they're doing here is trying to channel the wind around the car instead of flowing up like it used to under the wing and actually counteracting the downforce that they want from the wing. So all in all, a pretty distinctive look. That'll probably catch on.
Well, Steve, Kinser's car will look a lot like that when they get the bodywork back on. They've installed that new 410 cubic inch Chevy engine in it, so work is progressing nicely. We'll be back with the start of the B feature at Tulsa Speedway right after this. In 1911, when Will Rogers revisited his hometown of Claremore, he bought 20 acres of land nearby with the hopes of building his retirement home there. But following his death in 1935, 3 years later, the state of Oklahoma opened this beautiful memorial to him. Today, it's visited by thousands of people who remember this great American.
Well, right now, all this man, Tony Armstrong, the driver of the number 39 Sprinter, remembers is the accident a few minutes ago that has put him out of the B feature, unable to repair that automobile. We are just about ready for a restart of that event. 12 laps, 6 go to the big feature later on today.
And, Steve, we've had a change of position. Ted Lee moves into the pole position. And notice that Doug Wolfgang has already moved up. He's sitting in the 3rd spot in that yellow number 40. So as they go down the back chute, It'll be Ted Lee out of El Paso, Texas on the point. He will be on the hammer. Coming off turn 4, we've got a green.
We do indeed. These 400 cubic inch alcohol-burning V8 thunder into turn number 1. It is the 23 car Greg Woolley out front. Tim G trying to take second place away from 2T Ted Lee, but could not make it stick. G falls into the third place and now tries him on the outside. That is in the 88 car is Tim G from the Yukon Territory.
White Horse the Yukon as he's running in very familiar weather right now, Steve, as he takes over the second spot. And there's Rocky Hodges trying to make his comeback after going to the back after he stalled in that first lap problem. He's trying to get underneath local driver right here in Tulsa. That is Donnie Crawford in the red 77. Had to get out of it a little bit, Rocky did. And that gives Johnny Herrera in the 45 a shot at him. There is Hodges staying up high.
And look at Doug Wolfgang, the 40 car. He moves into the third spot, getting around 2T Ted Lee. Tim G and Doug Wolfgang right now running second and third. Out front is the number 23 car of Greg Woolley. Let's remember here, the top 6 will go to the A feature. So far, all of those guys in those 4 positions are secure if they can stay there. And here is Doug Wolfgang. He is not content with third spot.
No, he's not, Steve, because the closer he gets, in fact, if he wins this thing, that'll give him an even better starting position in the main event. So he's working hard right now on that 88 car of Tim G's to see if he can get by and move into that second spot.
Now, Jack Hewitt, Brock, number 63, he has moved up into the 4th position, looking good right now.
And with his sights set on Wolfgang in the 40 and sitting in the 3rd spot. Right now, we've got this race for 5th. That's the white number 3 of Joe Garrity, that red number 2 of Ted Lee, the 61 car of Mike Ward, and bringing up the rear of that orange 23, Rocky Hodges. So these guys are going at it for that 5th spot, Steve Evans.
Well, in the 6th spot as well, Brock, because the top 6 do transfer to the main. Now, Doug Wolfgang, he is continuing to put the pressure onto Tim G. Wolfgang in the 3rd spot, Tim G in the 88 machine just in front of him. And let's compare their tactics here as they move into turn 3 and 4. Wolfgang continues to go high. He likes to ride up there.
Yeah, he's up on top all the way around this racetrack. Ducks in low, takes that low groove through turns 1 and 2. And Tim G stays low down through 3 and 4. And, of course, Wolfgang takes that high side. The logic being, of course, that you carry more speed through the corner and kind of slingshot off, whereas the low line is shorter, but you don't get as much speed off the corner.
That's right. You tend to scrub it off. But Wolfgang is committed to that tactic. He doesn't appear to be willing to compromise and try to find any other quick way around. There again, he puts that driving wheel right out onto the cushion and carries all of that speed down the straightaway. He usually pulls right up on G here. Not as close this lap as he was the last.
But look at this, Steve. While Wolfgang has been distracted, perhaps, by trying to get by Tim G, Joe Garrity in the 3G has moved right up on him in the 4th spot.
Tim G got behind some slower traffic there. That allowed Wolfgang to pull wide down the front straight, and you betcha he's going to get right in there for the 2nd spot.
All right, so a pass there. Finally, the persistence pays off for the Wolf, and he does move into the 2nd spot. Let's see if he can run down the leader here. Greg Woolley still holds on to about a 6-car length lead as they come down the front straightaway on the final lap. So the Sooner fans in the stands are on their feet as they're going to watch one of their own, Oklahoma City's own Greg Woolley, head for the checkered flag here in the B main. Wolfgang takes one final shot at him, but not enough. Greg Woolley wins it.
And certainly the most interesting battle of the day had to be for that 2nd spot between Tim G and Doug Wolfgang. Wolfgang set him up beautifully. He could see that G was going to be unable to anticipate that traffic. Greg Woolley, the 23 car, he heads back for his trailer. They'll refuel this automobile, probably change the tires, and be ready for the feature. Also, it appears the number 11 car of Steve Kinser will be ready. Kinser himself aiding the crew and putting the wings back on. The new engine has been installed, and if I know Carl Kinser, it'll run just as stout as the one they had problems with. The final results of the B feature. Greg Woolley wins it, Doug Wolfgang 2nd, Tim G, Mike Ward, and Joe Garrity the top 5. In the all-important 6th position was number 63, Jack Hewitt. Brock?
Steve, I'm with Greg Woolley, who did a good job in that B main, and I noticed you're just checking your tires over here. You got a long way to go now.
Well, we get started pretty close up front. We qualified 3rd today, so that's a big decision. You know, we got 30 laps in A feature, so we didn't wear very much tire in the B feature, and I think we're going to go with the same thing we had.
Greg, what's the factor here? Are you going to, the racetrack seems to be getting a couple of pretty good grooves in it and some rubber down on it, but 30 laps is, that's a long way on a 3/8 mile of it. It's a bunch of turning left.
Yes, it is. The factor is that it's so cold that we don't know whether to go soft tires or hard tires, because we do have 30 laps and it is a long way, and no telling how many reds or yellows we're going to have out there.
Well, you know, so far today we haven't had very many. It's been real good racing. Everybody seems to be hooked up, and so maybe you're going to have green. It's a possibility of going green all the way, or maybe we'll own a couple of them.
I hope so, Bob.
Okay. Good job on winning that. Congratulations. Steve?
Got to be a little bit frustrating. You know you've got a car, you know you've got the talent to win, but thanks to that little bobble in the heat, you're going to start back 5th or 6th row in the feature. What are you going to do?
Well, it really wouldn't have mattered. I'd still got my time spot because I made it through the B. What cost me, what makes it disheartening is we probably could have won, I think maybe win or run second yesterday, which would have got me in the top 2 rows today, and because of the crank braking yesterday, and, you know, qualifying 8th today, I think qualifying 8th was probably more due to the fact that we went out a little late or whatever, and it was a little dustier. That the whole thing comes down to blowing up. You got to finish, you know. If we'd have finished yesterday, we'd have been in the top 2 or 3 today, and we wouldn't have had no troubles. And just like I told these guys yesterday when it blew up, I said the worst thing is not only did it blow up, but it's going to mess up tomorrow, because I'll come in, draw 99, go out last to qualify. And but I think I'll start probably, I think I was 6th fast today, and I got my time spot back. I finished in the top whatever in the B main 4 or something. And so I'll start probably around 12th, I think, maybe 11th. And it's just one of them tracks where a guy will have to hit the right combination, and nobody knows where it's at yet. It continues to change race after race, and the biggest advantage anybody would have here would be starting on the front.
We'll be watching and wish you the best.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I'll tell you what, if it gets any colder here, these guys are going to be running snow tires in the feature. We'll be back for the start right after this. As we get ready for the main event here at the Tulsa Speedway, you can see that Steve Kinser is already on board as his cousin Carl has completed in record time an engine change in less than 20 minutes. Now, the question is, how do these sprint car crews work so quickly? Part of it is their mobile workshops. Earlier, Steve had a look.
In the past, we've shown you some pretty exotic race car transporters. Well, when you race 100 times a year like Steve Kinser in the World of Outlaws does, exotic is not what you're looking for. Function is what you want. And in this rough and tumble sport, you always need a spare chassis. See it up there on top of the trailer. Let's take a look inside and see just what kind of equipment it takes to keep this team on the road just about all year long. First, and maybe most important, are all the little suspension bits. They're the first things to get bent up. They're attached to the wall. Each is lettered as to its function so that the crew in a matter of seconds can grab the proper piece. Now, next on that vulnerability list would have to be front axles. And here are 2 complete units with hubs and knockoffs. Now, it's expensive to carry a spare rear axle, but if you're going to be world champion again, you better have one. Kinser just approaching now. Here you can see the quick change, the disc brake, the hubs. This is ready to bolt right in. Also, here is a complete power steering unit for the automobile. Now, front wings, they've got a couple of spare ones attached up here on top. The tires you see here are really only for putting the car in the trailer. Goodyear brings the racing tires to each track as they need them. They don't have to carry fuel either. That's available at the racetrack, and that's a good safety feature. Now, back behind those 2 aluminum panels are 2 complete spare engines, and on the top rack, they're kind of the junk pile, but you can find a spare fuel injector or a filter or Steve's helmet, driving suit, whatever they need, they can just throw it up in there. All in all, a pretty complete unit. Now, as they use these parts up, they've got to be refilled, right? Well, about every 5 or 6 weeks, a trailer shows up from their shop in Indiana, and a crew person brings parts necessary to refill all of this and keep them out there on the highway making a living.
This will be mechanized warfare. And you can bet Steve Kinser right now is taking a close look at the oil pressure gauge, the water temperature, to make sure that that new motor is going to be up to the task. Jack Houdenscheld, he is on the pole in the 18 car. Only his 2nd weekend in that machine, and he is really performing. Kinser is on the inside in the 2nd row. Tim G inside the 3rd row, along with Greg Woolley. Bobby Davis Jr. and Jeff Swindell have performed wonderfully this weekend. The Californian Jimmy Sills and Doug Wolfgang back in row number 5.
Danny Smith, Bobby Stanley, Chris Eash from Maryland, and Andy Hillenberg from Broken Arrow right here in Oklahoma. we've got there's Sammy Swindell way back in row 9 in that black number 1. Bobby Allen, of course, a veteran in 1A. Joe Garrity and Jack Hewitt, they made it through the B Consolation. So here we go. We've got 30 laps around this very tight, very difficult Tulsa Speedway, which has now turned out to be a 2-group racetrack. We've got a green. We're underway. Oh, all of a sudden, no. Chris Eash dumped upside down at the very start. Coming off turn number 4, Eash is tumbled, just tipped upside down in a tangle that is pretty customary. Let's see if he's all right. Yes, Eash appears to be moving around. Woodbine, Maryland's Chris Eash takes a nasty spill, Steve Evans.
Boy, I'll say he did, Brock. This race never really got underway, and there he is. You're right. He is just fine. These well-built cars, coupled with those wings that take up some of that shock. Let's have a look in slow motion. Maybe we can determine what happened. The yellow car back there in the middle of the pack, the number 17 car. That is Chris Eash. He rides right up on the back of the 57 car. That is Danny Smith. And apparently, just in his enthusiasm to try to pick up some places in this very first lap, Chris Eash finds himself with a badly bent-up race car. Anytime you've got an open-wheel race car, it's totally different from, let's say, a stock car where you've got the sheet metal. You can bounce off of one another. You can't do that with these cars. You'll see right here, the yellow car rides up on the back of Danny Smith, and as soon as the tires get together, that causes all kinds of problems, including a very nasty, twisting flip. This type of spectacular incident, not at all unusual among the Outlaws. Brock is with Chris.
First of all, you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
What happened exactly?
Well, a couple cars got bottled up, and I just got up over somebody's wheel and just dumped it.
Classic sprint car crash, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we're glad, most important, that everybody's all right. We're sorry you're out, though.
Okay, thank you.
Well, the thing most wounded here will be the racing budget of Chris Eash. Not only is he not going to make much prize money, he's going to have to write some checks to repair that number 17 car as the wrecking crew hooks it up to drag it to the pits. Stay with us.
Oh, the field remains under caution. We still got 30 laps. The field took the green flag, but was only out for a matter of about 2 seconds before Chris Eash dumped it in turn number 4. So we're about ready, Steve Evans, for a start with Jack Houdenchild on the pole.
And so far, it's a much cleaner start than the original. It is Jack Houdenchild, the 18 car, leading him into turn number 1, now turn 2. Mark Kinzer just behind him, and Steve Kinzer in the 3rd spot. Steve Kinzer takes the 2nd spot.
As Houdenchild goes down into turn 1. There is Sammy Swindell in the black number 1, going by Andy Hillenberg in the black 2. The 44 car of Robbie Stanley. He is now moving past Stanley into the 13th spot. So Swindell is charging Steve Evans.
And next on his hit list is that red 11X car, Tommy Estes Jr. from Oklahoma. Swindell going to take him on the high side. Yes, that puts him in the 13th spot. Next in front of him is 57 Danny Smith.
There's your leader, Jack Houdenchild, but Steve Kinzer has got him in his crosshairs. Kinzer is broken free and moving in on Houdenchild. There's your race for 8th. Jimmy Sills in the 4 car, the 40 car of Doug Wolfgang, and ahead of them is the 10 car of Jeff Swindell. And look at that wheel stand that Wolfgang pulled coming off of turn 4.
Boy, with these short wheelbase cars, if they get hooked up like that, they can literally become airborne. Wolfgang, he is going to ride the rim, Brock. This is going to be one exciting man to watch.
It is, and there is Jeff Swindell up there on top as well. So Swindell and Wolfgang have found a high groove to work for them. Although Jeff dives low through turn number 1 and 2, but the Wolf up on top and sailing now.
And I'll tell you, Jack Houdenchild, the leader, just now crossing the start-finish line. He's been standing up like that as well, even more dramatically than Wolfgang. There's Kinzer in the 2nd spot, and that is Mark Kinzer just behind his cousin Steve. And he's putting the pressure on. Believe me, the Kinzers, there's no family loyalty when it comes to this kind of racing.
Well, I'll tell you what, Steve, Houdenchild's hooked up because the master, Steve Kinzer, can't seem to get a whole lot on him. He's moved in a little bit, but, oh, just as I said that, Kinzer takes an awful charge off of turn number 2 and moves in on Houdenchild. Houdenchild down low, a spin, Mark Kinzer keeps it going. Hammered down, does a full 360. What a piece of work. I'll tell you what. Stick yourself in a 1,400-pound automobile with 700 horsepower and try that on slick dirt sometime.
Boy, that was just spectacular. Here is Steve Kinzer running in that second position. Hounschild up in front of him, but for how long? Hounschild, Brock, reminds me of a younger Sammy Swindell. He doesn't quite have the smoothness that Sammy has with maturity, but does he ever have the courage to try anything necessary in the racetrack? And look at Kinzer going high, trying to get that driving wheel in the soft dirt. You saw a little smoke come off it when it hit the blue groove.
So here's your race for fourth. That is the red 56 car, Kenny Jacobs, and right behind him, Mark Kinzer, who's still in it, even though he did that terrific spin in turn 4. Right now, though, Jacobs seems to have the measure of Kinzer. Here are your leaders, and slowly Steve Kinzer almost inevitably moves in on Hounschild and takes the lead coming off turn 2.
He didn't even say, excuse me, just put his car where there appeared to not be enough room to do it and executed a magnificent Steve Kinzer-style pass for the lead. And look at the distance already he has put between himself and Hounschild.
All right, there's your race for fourth again, and Mark Kinzer moves by Kenny Jacobs. Kinzer continues to charge back from that little bobble he had. And here comes Jacob now trying the low side. Mark Kinzer up on top. Always good to watch these two different lines and dirt track racing. One of the most spectacular sights in all of motorsports.
Brock, we've got a caution flag out, and you just saw the reason for it there. The number 61 car, that is Mike Ward. He has spun in turn number 2, and Mike is darn glad to see that yellow cloth waving in the breeze. That is not a real safe place to be. And, you know, for all of you out there saying, boy, I'd sure like to see that spin in slow motion from Mark Kinzer, we just happened to have it. That was just a spectacular piece of driving. Let's take a look, Brock.
Well, here he is riding in third place behind his cousin and Jack Hounschild there in that 6R, and he just gets it too hot in turn number 4. Comes down, you see the rear wheel still spinning. He's got the power on and just kind of turns the wheel around. At the last minute, turns the wheels from trying to correct the slide, cranks them over to the left, and underway again. Looks easy, but I'll guarantee you, 9 times out of 10, an inexperienced driver would put it right in the fence when it happens like that. Brilliant drive by young Mark Kinzer, who is showing the colors of the Kinzer family in proud style, believe me. I don't know what it is in the genes of that family, but, man, every one of them can hook up in a sprint car. It's unbelievable, Steve.
And if one doesn't get you, the other one will. If it's not Steve, it might be Mark or another cousin Kelly or Sheldon. I mean, there's just a 6-pack of them out there running around.
Some of them can build engines like Carl and race cars. They're unbelievable. All right, a restart, and there is Bobby Davis Jr. trying to get underneath Jack Hounschild. Hounschild got way high in turn 4 and almost lost that second position as Bobby Davis Jr. in that red 6 now challenges and blasts by Hounschild down the back straightaway. So Hounschild getting high in turns 3 and 4. He pays the price. He lost just enough momentum so that Bobby Davis Jr. caught him and passed him half a lap later. So it shows you how critical and how evenly matched these race cars are.
Number 56, Kenny Jacobs, may have some problems. He's been kind of falling back. 57, Danny Smith has been moving up. Well, Wolfgang is still riding the wild side, and there he moves into the 4th position as he gets by number 56, Kenny Jacobs.
So the Wolf on the prowl here. He is now moving out toward Hounschild, who sits up there in the 3rd spot. He's got an open racetrack for a little bit, so that should help the Wolf as he rides the high groove all the way around 3 and 4. There is Bobby Davis Jr. and Hounschild still fighting it out for that 2nd spot, but Davis seems to have moved away a little bit. There is Sammy Swindell. We haven't heard much from him, but he is now moving in on Mark Kinzer, who has apparently slowed down a little bit. There's Swindell, down low, way on the bottom, trying to get underneath Mark Kinzer. This is the race for 6th place, and look at this. Mark Kinzer drives down into the infield. He's obviously had problems. Going to park that car after a terrific drive. Unfortunate, but opens the way for Sammy Swindell.
All right, and possibly opening the way for Howden's Child and Bobby Davis Jr. is the traffic that Steve Kinzer is going to face. He's starting to lap cars. You see the 3-car there of Joe Garrity. Now, this is when race car driving becomes a serious business, when you've got to pick off these lap cars, not allow them to hold you up, and they're all running for position, too. And you can't expect them all to just move by and wave you over.
All right, here's your race for 7th. That is Jeff Swindell, and on the outside, Kenny Jacobson. We've got Andy Hillenberg in the black, too, all going at it there for the 7th spot. As we watch the white flag come out, one more lap for Steve Kinzer in the 11 car. There is Jacobs and Swindell still going at it, still fighting it out for that 7th spot. They've got one more lap left as Swindell dives underneath Jacobs. Here comes the winner. Checkered flag out for Steve Kinzer.
Even an engine change between the Fram Dash and the A feature just doesn't slow that team down. Carl and the crew do their work, and when it comes time to get in the race car, is there anybody better than Steve Kinzer? I don't think so. What a job he did today. We'll be back to talk to Steve and some of the other top finishers after this.
All right, let's have one final look at this Oklahoma Showdown results. 30 laps. Steve Kinzer, Bobby Davis Jr. second. Jack Howdenchild, Doug Wolfgang, and Danny Smith round out the top 5. Sammy Swindell, Andy Hillenberg, Jeff Swindell, Kenny Jacobs, Jack Hewitt in the 10th spot. Of course, the man of the hour is Steve Kinzer.
Well, the king of the Outlaws has another notch in his gun, and he's breathing a little hard here. Steve Kinzer, congratulations.
Well, thank you. It was looking sort of bad. We went out there to run that dash and blew a motor, and I shut it off so quick and had a vibration, and I didn't know whether it was the motor or the drive line, so I was pretty sure it was the motor. So we got the motor in real quick. It probably didn't take us 20 minutes, and went out there and... but lucky we didn't get a chance to mess with the car race, so I guess we had it about right, so it went around real well.
You know, you always share these victories with the entire team, but today is special. They really did a job with the wrenches.
Well, anytime you can get a motor in out in 20 minutes and get your car ready to run and you win a race, your crew did a real well of a job. So I just want to thank Carl Kinzer, Paul Elrod, and Scott Gherkin. Those 3 guys do a super job all the time.
Indeed, they do. Congratulations again. A tremendous show.
All right, thank you. I just also want to thank Gambler Chassis and Coors Light for supporting our racing.
Okay. Steve Kinzer, he won the feature today. Let's go to Brock Yates with 2nd place.
Well, thanks, Steve. I'm in Bobby Davis Jr., who ran a good stout second after a pretty good race between you and Howdenchild, and then Mark Kinzer was in there for a while and some restarts and whatever, but I guess the tire choice worked out okay.
Well, we feel like the car was good, and we went with the soft tire, where Steve went with the harder compound. They might have had their car a little different than what we did, but we feel like we did all right.
You sure did. The racetrack turned out basically the way I expected it to be?
Yeah, I kind of felt like it was going to be slick all day, and it still seems like it's still slippery, so that's kind of what we was shooting for.
Well, it worked out good for you. Congratulations. Great second.
Thank you.
Okay. Steve?
Well, Jack, after that performance, I can only say one thing. Have you thought of wheelie bars for the back of the 18 car? Incredible.
Yeah, the car, I couldn't believe it. It just, getting real hooked up in the middle of the straightaway, and it did a wheelie, and I don't know. We left her back down and kept on going. The car was just hooked up tight, and you just can't race them there, so you got to let them back down.
Let me ask you, is that frightening or kind of semi-fun?
Oh, no, it's kind of fun, really,
We have a strange way of having fun, my friend.
Well, I wish we could have did a little better. Bobby and Steve, they're all fast tonight, and I was just glad to run 3rd.
Well, thanks to you and all of the Outlaws for one of the best races we've had the privilege of covering. It was terrific.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Brock, that seems to be it for the Oklahoma Showdown.
But we've got more Outlaw racing coming at you later in the year. For Steve Evans, I'm Brock Yates from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by the Style Auto World Championship Team, the nation's premier source of fast lane fashions. Style Auto, the champion's choice for the style of your life. American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.